This is lesson 14 of the Quantum Mechanics, a mini lecture series titled Rutherford's Atom. Now, I skipped a bit of important historical events just before Rutherford, but the idea was that people like Joseph John Thomson, a famous English physicist, actually came up with an atomic model. Okay, so atoms, it was believed that atoms existed. So Thomson believed that an atom was like a sphere with an overall, with a positive charge, with little negative charges distributed throughout it. Okay, electrons, and it was called the plum pudding model. Okay, the plums being the electrons in this case, and the pudding being the positive charge. Okay, and then came along Ernest Rutherford, New Zealand-born physicist, Ernest Rutherford, in 1911, and he discovered the atomic nucleus. Okay, and along with his colleagues at the University of Manchester. And so Rutherford found that atoms are little spheres, okay, with a very dense positively charged nucleus, and electrons are distributed around it somehow. Okay, and atoms are mostly empty space, with a nucleus occupying about 1/1000th of the space and about 99.9% of the mass of the atom. So the atom is pretty much empty space, and electrons are arranged in no particular order around the nucleus. Okay, and he did this along with his colleagues, as I mentioned. And what they did was they fired alpha particles, which are just helium nuclei, 2 protons and 2 neutrons. They fired alpha particles, helium nuclei, at a thin gold foil, and they believed that the thin gold foil was made of atoms, according to Thomson's model. Okay, that was the model before Rutherford's model. And here's what they found. So let's take a gold atom. Okay, most went through more or less unaffected, but some actually bounced back. Some alpha particles scattered back. Okay, this is called the famous scattering experiment. And using maths, they were able to figure out that there was something at the core of the atom, a positively charged nucleus. But then several questions were raised. Number one, how were the electrons arranged around the nucleus? He couldn't explain that. Number two, what's the nucleus made of? What's the nucleus made of? Okay, and what keeps it from exploding due to the repulsion of the positive charges making up the nucleus? Okay, it was believed that the nucleus is made of positive charges because a positive charge and a positive charge repels. Like charges repel. Same thing with negative charges, they repel. And the proton, it's worth noting that the proton was discovered in 1917. Okay, several years after Rutherford proposed his model. Number three, what keeps the electron from falling into the positive nucleus? Okay, because according to classical physics, negative and positive charges attract. Okay, it's called the force holding them together between a positive and negative charge. It's called the electrostatic attraction. This only works for unlike charges, so a plus and minus. They attract, and that force is called electrostatic attraction. And yeah, Rutherford couldn't really explain this, and so something else needed to be added or modified.